The punch landed in the middle of the hallway like a thunderclap, sharp and sudden, echoing off lockers under the bright wash of late-morning sunlight, and for a split second the entire school seemed to inhale at once as the new girl staggered but did not fall. Everyone expected her to crumple, to shrink, to become another quiet story whispered later, yet something in her eyes stayed upright even when her body swayed, and that single moment changed everything that was supposed to happen next. Before the story goes any further, if you believe that kindness can change lives and that people deserve second chances, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Acts of Heart because stories like this exist to remind us why compassion still matters. The new girl's name was Mara Ellison, and she had arrived at Eastbridge High on a cloudless Tuesday morning when the sun was high and unforgiving, spilling across cracked pavement and long windows like it wanted to expose every flaw and fear. She carried her life in one worn backpack and a folded schedule clutched too tightly in her hand, her shoulders stiff with the practiced alertness of someone who had learned long ago that new places were rarely safe. The halls buzzed with familiar laughter and careless footsteps, the sound of people who knew exactly where they belonged, and Mara felt like a shadow slipping between beams of light, careful not to be seen. She had transferred halfway through the year, a fact that already made her suspicious in the eyes of students who measured worth by how long someone had existed in their orbit. Teachers smiled politely but moved quickly, unaware of the storm that brewed in the spaces they did not watch. Mara's past was a suitcase she never unpacked, filled with schools where silence had been her shield and endurance her only skill. She had learned to move aside, to make herself small, to give ground before it was taken from her, because that was how you survived. That habit almost saved her again when she reached the narrow corridor near the science wing, where lockers jutted out like teeth and students clogged the space with careless confidence. She tried to step aside when a group approached, her body already shifting, but there was nowhere to go. Her back brushed cold metal, her feet tangled, and she froze just long enough for the wrong person to notice. Brock Halden noticed everything that threatened his fragile sense of control. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and loud in a way that demanded attention, the kind of presence that fed on reactions. His laughter had weight to it, the kind that crushed rather than lifted, and his friends orbited him like moons too afraid to drift away. When he saw Mara hesitate, when he saw her eyes flicker with uncertainty instead of instant obedience, something ugly sparked behind his grin. The shove came first, sharp and dismissive, meant to send a message. When Mara didn't move fast enough, when her body hit the locker with a hollow clang instead of slipping past, Brock's impatience turned into anger. The punch followed, not brutal but deliberate, aimed at humiliating more than hurting, a public reminder of who held power in this place. It struck her shoulder and jaw, snapping her head sideways, drawing gasps that rippled through the crowd like wind through dry leaves. Mara tasted metal and fear at the same time, felt the familiar heat of shame crawl up her neck, and for a heartbeat her old instinct screamed at her to fold inward, to apologize for existing, to disappear. She saw faces blur around her, phones half-raised, eyes wide but feet rooted, and she realized with a strange clarity that nothing would change if she played her old role again. She had been this girl before, the one who absorbed pain quietly, and it had followed her like a curse. Something shifted inside her, not anger exactly, but resolve forged from years of swallowing injustice. She straightened, feeling the ache in her bones, and met Brock's gaze without flinching. Her hands shook, but they were steady enough. When he leaned in, expecting fear, expecting surrender, Mara moved. The counterstrike was fast and instinctive, a sharp motion driven by adrenaline and buried training from a childhood spent in a boxing gym where her uncle had taught her how to defend herself because the world was not gentle. Her elbow connected with Brock's chest as she pivoted, knocking the air from his lungs, and she followed with a push that sent him stumbling back into his own friends. It was not flashy, not cruel, but it was enough. Enough to break the script everyone knew by heart. The hallway fell silent in a way that felt louder than any shout. Brock gasped, more shocked than hurt, his authority punctured in front of an audience that had never seen him checked. Teachers came running then, voices raised, order restored, consequences promised, but the damage was already done. A line had been crossed, and it did not belong to the new girl anymore. Mara was escorted to the office, her heart pounding, her mind racing with the familiar dread of punishment layered over a new, fragile pride. She expected detention, suspension, maybe worse, because standing up for yourself had never been rewarded in her experience. As she sat in the stiff chair under fluorescent lights, she stared at her hands and wondered if she had just made her life harder all over again. The administration investigated, listened, reviewed footage, and for once the truth was not buried. Brock's history surfaced, a trail of incidents brushed aside because no one had pushed back before. Consequences landed heavier on him than on Mara, and while the school framed it as zero tolerance, something else shifted beneath the official language. Students whispered differently now. Teachers watched more closely. The hallway where it happened felt altered, as if the air remembered. Mara returned to class with a bruise blooming along her jaw and a reputation she never asked for. Some students avoided her, unsure what to make of a girl who did not fit neatly into victim or troublemaker. Others looked at her with something like respect, tentative but real. She still ate lunch alone at first, still flinched at sudden movements, still carried the weight of her past, but there was a new thread woven through her days, thin but strong. Over time, small things changed. A classmate slid into the seat beside her without speaking. Someone offered notes when she missed a lesson for a counselor meeting. A smile lingered instead of darting away. None of it erased what happened, but it softened the edges. Mara began to realize that standing up once had opened a door she did not know existed, a door to being seen as more than an easy target. Brock's fall from untouchable status was quieter but no less real. Without his audience, his cruelty lost momentum, and the school's watchful eye limited his reach. He glared at Mara from across rooms but never approached again, and that distance felt like reclaimed ground. Mara did not celebrate his discomfort, she understood too well how pain could twist a person. What mattered was that the cycle had been interrupted. Days turned into weeks under bright skies and long afternoons, and Mara found herself breathing easier in the daylight-filled halls. She joined a study group, then a club, testing the shape of belonging. Her story spread beyond Eastbridge, carried in fragments and retellings, and while she wished it did not define her, she accepted that it might help someone else feel less alone. Near the end of the semester, during an assembly about respect and accountability, Mara stood among her peers and listened to words that once would have sounded hollow. This time, they felt anchored by memory, by proof that action could back them up. She thought of the girl she had been on that first day, shoulders hunched, eyes down, and felt a quiet gratitude for the moment she chose differently. If this story has reached something tender inside you, if it reminded you of a time you wished you had been braver or kinder, please take a moment now to like, comment, and share this video so it can reach someone who needs it today. Mara's life did not transform into a perfect arc. She still had bad days, still battled the echoes of fear, still learned what confidence meant one step at a time. But she carried with her the knowledge that she was capable of drawing a line and holding it, that dignity could be defended without losing compassion. In the end, the punch that was meant to diminish her became the catalyst for her becoming whole, not because of violence, but because of the courage to refuse silence. Before this story ends, we have one special request for you. Please comment below and share what kindness or second chances mean to you, because your words might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. The hallway where it all began still fills with sunlight every morning, students passing through unaware of the quiet revolution that once took place there. Mara walks it now with steady steps, not invincible, not hardened, but awake to her own worth, and that is how the story truly ends, not with a strike, but with a girl who learned she did not have to move aside to exist.